You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program where we break down the wild world of crypto. We look at the spot, of course, but we also like to take a deep dive into derivatives, the futures, and indeed the options, the volatility, the term structure, the skew, all of that good stuff. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we hope so, the Options Insider Radio Network. Coming at you on a little bit different day here for Crypto Rundown. But I think you'll see the reason once I introduce our guest. So without further ado, let's keep on rolling right on into the crypto hot seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the show we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto and digital assets and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you. And today's guest is actually making a repeat appearance here on the program, even though it has been a little while. If you listen to the show in the interim, you know we like what these guys work on. He is Emmanuel Goh, the co-founder over there at Skew. Emmanuel, welcome back to the Crypto Rundown program.
Hey, Mark. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure.
Emmanuel, let's just dive right into it. You haven't been on since March, so a lot's happened certainly in the world of crypto since March, not the least of which being the turn to the upside, the end of crypto winter, effectively. Also, a lot has happened with you guys over there at Skew. Let's start with the obvious, the one I just noticed myself a few weeks ago when I was going to your site, as I regularly do, to check in on analytics. I noticed I was not going to sk3w.co anymore. Emmanuel, what happened? How did you get that top-level domain, sir?
Yeah, I mean, we felt our users would like a bit more the new domain, and it would probably be a bit more recognizable and friendly. So, that felt this summer like a right time to just buy it for, it's like an investment for the future, really, for us.
So I know you raised some new funding, so congratulations. Did a good chunk of that go to that new domain, sir?
No, a little bit, I would say, but we raised $2 million, so most of our resources going towards hiring great people, actually, and so that's we are happy to talk to anyone that likes what we do, and we are hiring actively, actually.
Well, Emmanuel, obviously we've added a lot of new listeners since the last time you were on, as the crypto space has just been growing and moving like mad. So give our audience a real quick overview of what Skew is and what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we are a data analytics company based in London, a team of 10 people. We like to focus primarily on the crypto derivatives market. Prior to starting Skew, I was an options trader at JP Morgan for a number of years. And so we feel this market is really interesting. It's also, ripe for, growing a lot more. And so, we decided to just kind of settle there and become the kind of leading venue to get, very quickly, I would say, in real time, a glimpse of what's going on in those markets. So that's what really, why our product has been so popular.
It certainly has. People always ask us all the time, where do we recommend people go to look for analytics on the crypto derivative side? And there really is only one game in town. We send them to you guys. So it's been a good one. I do like the domain. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the option space who are very sad right now, Emmanuel, that you snagged Skew.com from underneath their arms there, sir.
Yeah, we are long Skew. We couldn't keep really like the old domain. It just is done. I think those domain things is like real estate. Really, there is only one domain that will fit you, and as long as you don't have it, you will always think about, should I get it? So we just felt, we do it for once and for good. So that's an interesting story.
Especially when the name is in the URL, it's kind of hard to go without it over there. But yeah, anyone who's been to Skew recently, Skew.com recently, or the old URL, sk3w.co, will notice there's a bit of a new coat of paint. I'm guessing a lot of that has to do with the new funding. So catch us up on what you guys have added under the hood since the last time we chatted.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing we did is just like make the whole website a little bit more friendly, I would say, and spending quite a bit of time around design and having a kind of, I would say, a nicer user experience. So, and that we give for really everyone that's interested into the space, and you don't have to be kind of like an expert, but I think there are stuff that are interesting in there for everyone, from the kind of least sophisticated investors to the kind of professional options traders, and so we really keep that in mind. So hopefully, that the whole user experience has been improving, and we are very committed to keep improving it in the future. What we've been doing also more specifically for professional users is really rolling out an offering that's much more customized. So we are starting to onboard people through accounts, and that's what you will get here is an ability to interact with all our data and drill into historical data. Also, there are tons of charts in there, probably 150 charts, 10 dashboards, but most of people are usually interested in some specific areas of the data we have, and so they'll be able to just customize their own dashboard and make, I think the world increasingly wants an experience that's customized, and if you go on Twitter or Instagram, everyone has its own thing, and I think that's very much the direction of history. So we want to be on that front early also. So that's kind of the latest news from our side.
Yeah, the new look definitely is eye-catching and, of course, does make it a little bit easier to navigate. Of course, for our use case, whenever we go over to your site, we always mainline straight into the Bitcoin options side. I'm curious, is that pretty much the standard use case for a lot of your users? Where are people hanging their hats on Skew these days? What are the most popular analytics? Is it in the Bitcoin options with the Skew and stuff? Is it in the futures? Is it something else entirely? What are people coming to Skew to use these days? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think it's kind of a function of the volumes actually, and what people are doing in the space. So I would say like our most popular page is definitely the Bitcoin futures one, and then because our kind of offering around options is by far the most comprehensive in terms of all the work we are doing with our own internal models. The options one is the second most popular. So, and I think, you can see this trend across, what the guys will say in terms of activity on OTC desk or exchanges, but kind of most of the interest really this year has been around Bitcoin.
So not a lot of love yet for the altcoin side there?
I mean, on our side, like we are really interested in Ether. We've got like similar kind of offering for Ether futures and options. But the truth is, this year has been probably we've just from our traffic, right? We've seen a little bit less traffic on that front. I think this is definitely an area of growth. And would like to see, more development in the space. Hopefully, we'll see maybe a listing of like an Ether futures contract across one of the big US venues, such as the CME or ICE, in the, maybe next year.
You connect into a lot of different venues. I know you have a lot of the Deribit volume here, Ledger X as well. Have you been adding more venues to that list since the last time we chatted?
Yeah, I mean, we spend quite a lot of time reviewing the venues that we are adding to the platform. Deribit's been leading the space in options by quite a bit. We are excited to see that the CME and BACT are also entering the space and launching their offering in December and Q1. But yeah, I think, from our side, we've been kind of covering the crypto native exchanges, what you guys call in the US, the offshore exchanges. From the very beginning, and we, as our audience is quite institutional, it's been important for us to really, be in touch with the people at the venues like CME and ICE, and we want to increasingly onboard them also.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's probably challenging to get a lot of those quote-unquote traditional venues on board with what you're doing here, because a lot of the venues, particularly here in the U.S., they see that market data offering as a key sellable asset that they have here, whereas a lot of the crypto players, the native crypto venues, see data as, I think, a much more readily available resource that should be available to a lot of people. Has that started to get difficult for you guys to get access to this data out there as you guys keep growing and as the crypto derivative space keeps growing?
Those are kind of different types of companies, and they are much more mature, and so the kind of maybe sales cycle is a little bit different. But what we see is really like people that are very engaged and committed towards building for this new space, and so what they really want also is get their products out there, and there is quite a bit of competition, and so they are really keen to work with the people that are trying to do some quality work, and so I find them very engaged actually.
And you've definitely added a few new tabs, a few new offerings since the last time you've been on with us. Obviously, we hang our hat mostly in the Bitcoin options section, a little bit in the futures there as well. But you have a lot of new things like spreads and liquidity and heat maps. So walk us through those new tabs, those new offerings there, Emmanuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of work. I think the space is kind of structurally, I would say, very fragmented, right? And so one of the challenges is really to kind of aggregate all of that data, and so we're able to do that in a pretty efficient way. So this is where we've been spending some time, but I think we are covering at this stage probably 10 plus venues quite extensively, and so that's been great. One of the stuff that we released this week that I find awesome is those are simple strategies like cash and carry, where you would just kind of deposit your Bitcoin, sell like a future, and collect what we call the basis. You can look at how much this type of strategy can yield you. Usually they are kind of lower risk. Those are spread strategies, and so at the moment you can see that some of the offshore venues will give you potentially returns that are around 10% annualized, and so we feel that's interesting. I think there's been some. If you're an investor or like a fund, it just shows that you don't necessarily have to have an underlying thesis around Bitcoin and will it stay as the digital store of value, but also there are strategies where it's just because of the market structure you can just try to do some relatively simple stuff and make some money. And so I guess as the CME and ICE, which will give a lot of confidence to the market in terms of credit risk and clearing, we will potentially see people that are initially less of like Bitcoin believers, but they will still try the product because there are massive opportunities out there.
Obviously, the last time you were on was right before the worm turned, pretty much almost to the day in the crypto space. Pretty much you were on right at the tail end of the crypto winter. Obviously, over the last 6+ months, things have changed markedly out there in the space. What's it been like for you guys? Have you seen an uptick in interest in the analytics? Did that help on the fundraising side as well when Bitcoin and crypto kind of turned to the bullish side again? What's that been like for you guys as the worm kind of turned out there in the crypto space?
No, I'd say, we are a 1 year old company, so we are growing quarters on quarters, and that's been ongoing since we started. I think the Q2 has been particularly interesting, as you say. You had really on the 2nd of April you have this very, very big short squeeze, which was kind of mainly positioning driven, but then we quickly entered into discussing Facebook and Libra, so we really saw a lot of interest from institutions. I think that is kind of forcing them, when you have like one of the largest corporations in the world that is kind of going almost, that is ready to change a lot of like their core products to onboard the technology. It just kind of forces everyone to reconsider. And so we've had a lot of discussions with various kind of actors from traditional finance, and definitely some interest. So, and in terms of the kind of metrics and in terms of price, I think Bitcoin kind of really, peaked in July or at the turn of July on $13,000, but also in terms of the volume. So that kind of quarter was really active, and then the summer probably a little bit less. And it feels like since the Chinese announcement on 25th of October, the market's picking up again.
Yes, we're all living in a post-Chinese announcement world over here on the crypto side. But it does sound like then, at the very least for you guys, I'd imagine, as a new startup, like you mentioned, you're only really a year old. It would have probably been challenging to continue to go out there and generate users and continue to generate funding interest and everything else if Bitcoin had continued its erosion, let's say south of that 3,000 handle, and let's say 6-8 months later we were now talking about a Bitcoin threatening 2,000 to the downside. I have to imagine it would be a little bit different scenario over there at Skew for you guys, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I mean those are markets, right? And one day this is great, and one day it's not so great. I think, what matters when you do kind of those business or on markets and financial markets is really what you tend to find is we do very well, and this is the same, with our analytics, and that's the same with the exchanges actually, or the OTC desk, when actually there is volatility. So it's really like when there is a pickup in trading activity, this is where all our services are doing great. So, but for sure we are kind of naturally long the space, and it doesn't hurt that Bitcoin kind of went from 3K to 13K, but it went a little bit quiet, and now it's picking up again. Like those things are very cyclical, and that's kind of inherent to doing business in financial markets. So we are ready for that.
One of the things I really like about your platform, one of the reasons we recommend it to everybody, Emmanuel, is that it is freely available to everybody. I mean, this is really in-depth analytics, and you guys make it available to everyone. I have to imagine now, with all the new rounds of funding, maybe some of the new investors are saying, hey, what are we going to do to recoup some of that? So is there a plan in the future to maybe have a premium offering, or maybe to do something on the package data side? I don't want you guys to go away from free. We love it. But what is the plan on that end?
Yeah, I mean, it's like for now we are launching a rocket, right? So we want to have a great product and get the feedbacks and see a lot of like this recurring usage, and that's really important to us. We are kind of mindful of not trying to monetize too early. Now, that being said, there is a point where we are a company, and there will be a time to monetize. For the time being, like our offering is free. We are rolling out accounts for corporates and professional people that will be free also. It might not stay that way forever, but at the start, we are really kind of committed to give the right level and right quality of data to the space. And I think that will be very beneficial for people that are kind of working there and really making decisions on a day-to-day basis, that they can rely on data that we know is high quality and real.
I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like you found some patient investors then, because sometimes when firms do new rounds of funding, all of a sudden, they need to get going on the other side to recoup some of that. Sounds like your investors are patient. They realize you're building a nice community here and building some interest, and they're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, we are venture funded, so I guess those investors are I don't know if it's patient, but they are willing to take the long view, and we have to build the right foundations. We are very careful to build like a great brand and this kind of network effect. And so, I think you would be a little bit mindful as a startup, try to monetize too early, but I think definitely you want to monetize at some point. And so we'll be looking at that probably somewhere next year.
Hey, Bitcoin, Uber just lost, $1 billion in a quarter? So there are very many patient venture firms out there willing to accrue some losses. Well, I'm noticing looking at the site right now, you also have a beta for a new account tab and an an insights tab coming soon label there. What's the plan with those?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I was mentioning, but we are trying to give a more customized experience to our users. So the goal will be to onboard professional people that are looking at crypto as professionals, and so we are giving them the ability to just interact with the charts and just change the time frames and save their own dashboards, and so just have their own kind of customized view of the crypto markets.
We're excited about that, and we're excited you guys got the easier to remember domain out there. Emmanuel, you're going to stay on with me for the rest of the show, but really quickly there for our listeners there who are enjoying Skew right now, if you want to give them a little tease of what's coming down the pike right now, maybe your favorite killer function right now over there at Skew. When you log into the site, Emmanuel, what's your go-to? What do you do first?
Yeah, I mean, every Saturday we get the numbers from the positioning of traders from the CME, and we hope to be adding back soon. And that's been kind of one of the things that every Saturday morning I'm looking to do. But I'm also kind of, very excited by the new kind of chart we release on the real-time basis for the cash and carry strategies. Like there are a number of things that we really like. We like the product overall.
Well, I'm glad to see you're a fan of your own product. That's a good thing. Skew, now it's easy to find, listeners. SKEW.com, the way you always wanted it to be, as we keep on rolling right on into the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we put some of those analytics to use and discuss what the heck's going on out there in the Bitcoin front, on the spot, on the futures, and even a little bit on the options and the volatility side. Obviously, this week was a quieter week. Not quiet, but a quieter week than a couple of weeks ago where we saw, of course, China kicked everything off to the upside and then to the downside. We had, I think it was roughly a 3,000-point range that week, so pretty insane across the board out there. It's kind of hard to live up to that again this week, and certainly we didn't. It was rough. It's like a close to $500 range on the week, maybe a little bit less than that. Coming into showtime, Bitcoin was at about 93.5. Now it's just ticked up to about 93.70 out there, so that puts it down a bit from where it was last show, right around about 45 handles or so right now. So net on the week, I guess a week and a day, because we're coming at you a day late here this week. It seems like it was a pretty quiet week, but overall things are still moving out there. We hit a low of right around 9,050. That was on Halloween here. So hit that 9,000 level and pretty much bounced off it, pretty close to it. I'm sure if our crypto patterns friends out there were on the show today, they'd be saying that was some sort of support level there right around 9,000. So 90.5 or so seemed to be the support this week, and got a high of right around 94.65. So again, a little over, looks like over 400 actually over there, about 415 or so net on the week from a range perspective. Let's get into some of those metrics, Emmanuel, we like to look at over here. Again, we could play with Skew all day here on the show. Let's look at the realized first. 30-day realized is actually almost exactly unched from where it was this time last week. It was about a 75.4, I think, last week. This week, 75.5. So 30-day realized, despite the fact that we had a tumultuous period over a week ago, it hasn't really kind of unched. It's kind of frothy, kind of elevated, and kind of staying there. Let's get to the actual implied out there, which has come off quite a bit, which is 30-day implied, not exactly surprising. Again, it can't stay on that rocket to the moon that it was a week and change. That got over the 93 or so, I believe, if not higher there. You can't stay at that level forever. And last week's on the show was about 83.5. This week, it's coming off again down to about 65%. Let's look over at the volume numbers as well. The volume on Deribit, at least here, kind of a somewhat mild week. We use that 30 million notional as kind of that barometer for, is it an active day or not? And only a few days over that level over this past week. The 28th had about 47 million. 31st, so Halloween. Again, that's right where we hit that low and bounced off of it. About 64, almost 65 million. And on the 3rd, was about 39 million. You know, Emmanuel, this is the question I ask a lot of people, and I'm curious to get your thoughts as well. You guys are the keepers of the data over there at Skew, after all. Are you surprised, given the fact that, you know, so much is going on in the space and so much is trading back and forth, that we still haven't seen that explosion of volume over there on the Bitcoin options side, whether it's on Deribit or some of the other platforms that you track over there, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news there is, BACT is coming in December and the same is going in Q1, and this has been historically a space where there's been less coverage, but this is coming to an end. So I think the volumes have been healthy on Deribit and they've been growing strongly compared to Q4 last year. And so I think around last year the kind of average daily volume was probably around, let's call it like $6 million a day, and now we are looking around $30 million. So we are coming from a very low base, but there has definitely been some growth there.
Actually, we had a bunch of questions in the past about one of your metrics. Since I have you on, I might as well put them to you now. A lot of people have questions about your 25 delta skew metric out there, which is, of course, your 50 delta risk reversal, 25 delta put, 25 delta call, very standard metric out here in the options world for measuring skew. You guys quote it as both a negative and a positive. Obviously, depending on the product you're looking at, a negative and a positive skew can mean different things. In an index, that can mean one thing versus a commodity where the skew can get all over the place. That can mean a little bit different. Looking at it right now, we're seeing the 1 month skew here is at about a negative, about 2.25. We've been asked in the past what you guys mean when you're quoting negative and positive skews. Maybe clarify that for our listeners right now. Negative 2.25 and the 1 month 50 delta skew out there in Bitcoin. What do you guys actually mean? What is over in that?
Yeah, so that means calls are over. So guys are coming from equities, just for the story. So in equities, like S&P skew is very steep, right? So the puts are always much more expensive than the calls, and you have all those people selling one put to fund the purchase of X amount of calls. And so anyway, the kind of standard in equity markets is puts are over. And so here we are looking at 25 delta put, the implied vol, minus the 25 delta call, the implied vol. And we normalize that by dividing by the at the money vol for the given maturity. So that kind of help us to normalize. And, if you wanted to compare this level of skew versus a lower vol underlying, you would be able to do so. But yeah, I think, structurally, the kind of skew is, according to our definition, is structurally negative, which means, the market is kind of always bullish and calls always more expensive relative to puts.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I thought you were quoting it, but I didn't want to put words in your mouth. That's why I've been answering people behind the scenes, but I wanted to give you a chance to say it out there officially. If you're curious how that stacks up, listeners, are at about about 2.5 right now in that 1 month skew. The max we've seen is about 16, almost 17% to the upside, and minimum is about 16, almost exactly the same, 16.62 and 16.64 there to the downside as well. So kind of interesting out there. Again, it is in the name, Skew.com after all. So good to see you have some good skew metrics over there. Looking really quickly, one of the other things I like to look at here on Skew all the time, Emmanuel, is kind of your trade meter, your over 50 Bitcoin options meter, to see what the size trades are for the week. And some weeks it's kind of paltry. Some other weeks it's kind of more interesting. Looks like this week the big trade of the week seems like it's a bit of a vertical. Although it looks like they did. Interesting. There was a vertical. There was a 1,200, 1,600 call spread that went up. Looks like about 250 times. And then maybe it looks like now they came in and did some more on the upside, because more of the 1600s traded 250 times as well. How challenging is it, Emmanuel? I'm curious, because some of these trades have the side attached to them. Others don't. We're used to, in the equity options side, having some decent insight into where these trades are going up relative to the bid and offer, and that gives us a little bit of ability to intuit what the customer is up to. How difficult is it for you guys on the analytics side to see these trades go up. How much data is actually accompanied with the reporting, and how much do you guys have to really kind of read between the lines? Like, for example, I'm looking at some of these big trades, and they don't have a side reported out there, so maybe they were more mid-market. How difficult is it for you guys to kind of mine that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. On that front, we are not guessing the direction. We get the direction directly from the API of the derivative exchange. And so that's when it's traded on screen. The exchange will also be working with the companies called Paradigm to build a block trading functionality. And so when you don't see the side that's specified, it means that it's been blocked. So, when you look at the March 12,000, 16,000, it seems like, it's been blocked and might probably have been, a 1-by-2 call ratio.
So you guys actually get that data reported to you then. They will all tell you this is the buy or sell. That makes it a little easier.
Yeah, it's all reported electronically. I think we have too much data to do anything manually, so we are not updating a single chart manually, or I'm not aware of it at least.
That is a little refreshing for the world of mostly equity options and even commodity options to a degree, where you have to kind of intuit what the customer is up to. They don't like that transparency out there. So getting maybe a little bit more going on out there in the Bitcoin options world, which is, I think, good for everybody here at the end of the day. Let's keep rolling with the options numbers over here, looking at the call, the put. That's always. Also, before we get that, let's look at the term structure. Obviously, last week, I think the technical term was super backward. That front weekly contract was just bid to the stratosphere. I think it was into the 80s from a vol perspective, which I think makes sense given the fact that we had a 3,000 point roughly range out there on the week. This week, things have quieted down. That front weekly contract has quieted down as well. It's a SI of 60, looks like here, about 55 or so out here. So no longer is that front weekly contract super backward bid up over the rest of the term structure. We have a nice, gently upward sloping term structure over here, which is a more normal phenomenon. It looks like it tops out around that 75 level out there in the June contract. So we go from about 55 up to about a 75. So nice, decent, somewhat steep, but decent slope out there from a vol term structure perspective. Looking at what the options have been up to, the call, the put, the calls look like they're back in charge, which I guess makes sense given the fact that we saw a little bit of resurgence over the past week and a bounce off that 9,050 level or so. The calls are back in charge to the tune of about 64%. They're up from about 40%. So the puts were leading the dance last week, which again doesn't surprise, and we saw that massive sell-off for a while there. And now calls back, leading the dance about 64, almost 65%. Open interest, a nice little encouraging number here as well, also growing here. Last week it was about 514 million. This week it's over 555 actually, which is kind of interesting out here as well. And let's go over here really quickly because we like to look at where since we have Emmanuel on, let's dive into all this data here. It's kind of fun. Let's see here where the action is, where it's aggregated here, and that open interest. And Emmanuel, correct me if I'm wrong, these open interest metrics you guys have here, that's a combination of Deribit and LedgerX, am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. No, those are the two, and then we'll be looking to add the next exchanges that are coming in with options.
All right, and looking here, yeah, December still even more firmly in charge. Once October rolled off the board a couple of weeks ago, OC was number 2. It had nearly 20 million. 20,000, I should say. 20 million, that'd be nice. 20,000 contracts out there with about close to 20% of the open interest. Now it's about nearly 30,000 contracts over there on the DEES contract, and everything else kind of light, 10% in some of the NOVs, and then it kind of falls off from there. So everyone's got DEES on the brain here. Let's see what the futures have on the brain. It's going out to the CME Bitcoin future out here. Kind of a quiet day and indeed a pretty light week overall out there. Again, coming on the heels of a pretty volatile week the week before. Today, coming into the show here, we saw about 2,500 contracts on the tape. Remember, that's a 5X coin, but still, 5X contract, I should say, but still not a lot of paper. We've seen many more coins on the brain today, many more contracts going up out there in recent weeks. Over the past week, kind of light as well. We saw Friday doing about 27, almost 2,800. Thursday doing about 2,200. Wednesday, 3,700 or so. Tuesday, 3,200. And the big day was Monday, about 7,250 or so, coming on the heels of that kind of tumultuous week. So Monday, good day to do the show usually because that seems to be one of the more tumultuous days of the week out here in all things all things Bitcoin. All right, well, let's keep on rolling. There's other products out there to talk about as well. So without further ado, let's roll on into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we break down everything else that isn't Bitcoin. And Emmanuel, I don't play around with the altcoin functionality on Skew that often. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's fair to say that you guys pretty much hang your hat solely on ETH for the time being?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think because we come from the derivatives market, when you start covering those markets, you need to have the underlying, I would say, that is mature enough so that it makes sense to start covering the market. So for now, we feel Ether is there, but we are looking for potentially other underlyings to also emerge with a good and healthy derivatives market to develop. But so far, it's been Bitcoin and Ether.
Yeah, we get asked all the time to cover a wide variety of esoteric altcoins. I'm sure you guys get those queries all the time as well, but I think it makes sense. I mean, once you get beyond Bitcoin, those volumes fall off. Then you have ETH, which is a clear number two, not just in market cap, but in volume and everything else. And once you get beyond that, and there actually is a decent ETH derivatives market out there. But once you get beyond that, you're right. It is very much slim pickings, at least on the crypto derivatives side. When some of these other products start ticking up in terms of volume, might be interesting to add. Let's look really quickly what you have available. We don't really get a chance to do this very often here on the show. The ETH metrics out here, 1 month, the realized vol in ETH at about a 70% right now here, which is kind of interesting. Let's see. The volume out here has been fairly decent. I don't know what a good barometer is. I'm guessing it's not 30 million. What would you say? You're the keeper of the data out here, Emmanuel. What would you say is a good notional barometer for an active day in ETH options? We've kind of settled around 30 million in Bitcoin. What would you say is the analog in ETH options?
Yeah, I mean, the average has been, you can see in the data, it's trading on average $2 million notional. So, that's where the market is, probably, a little bit less than 10% of the Bitcoin market. But still, I think the fact that you get Ether options is extremely interesting, and partly for the reason that there is an area of options trading that people like to do a lot in traditional markets, which is called, spreads and spreading. So we have a page dedicated to that where we just assess the Ether market relative to the Bitcoin market. And so that's been interesting. Historically, it's probably easier to take a view on the spread, which is mean reverting, than sometimes just the outright volatility. So that's been very popular with traders. And I think that's probably a place where, people will be able to play all sorts of events. And, as the market grows, I think definitely the Bitcoin, because it's much bigger, right? It's almost like an index, will be the kind of short leg for a lot of spreading strategies. So we started to do a little bit of work around that. What's been interesting is also to see that Ether has been actually, not so volatile. It's actually realizing less than Bitcoin when you look at it on a 1 month basis. And it's also interesting to be tracking the implied vol spread, where, it's kind of been, it can be volatile at times, but it's kind of hovering between 0 and 5 vols.
Yeah, this is interesting. We'll have to do a deep dive here on the show one of these days, but all the various metrics you guys have for ETH as well. We probably could do a whole second show on just this. I'm looking really quickly, and you're right. You have the volumes here. It says the average of about pretty much 2 million on the ETH option side. Looks like the big day over the past week or so was on the 24th, so a little more than a week ago, with about nearly 5 million contracts, or 5 million notional worth going up here on ETH. So obviously, ETH options still a much smaller market than Bitcoin, but getting up there. ETH this week as well speaking of getting up there, up a little bit this week, up about $8 here, coming into the latter portion of the show here. So that puts it right about a 190, almost 191. It hit a high of about 192 and change. That was back on the 29th, and it bounced off a low a couple of times here, which is kind of interesting. We'll have to talk to the crypto patterns guys. I'm not a huge technical guy myself, but it did seem like it hit that 179.5 low multiple times this week, and right around there, maybe a few cents below, a few cents above, and then bounced off it multiple times. So I've heard before, anecdotally, a lot of people saying some of the technicals do apply a little bit better out here in some of the altcoin. That could be the case out here in ETH this week. Let's also look at some of the others here really quickly. Our old friend Ripple, a.k.a. XRP, once again, almost exactly unched on the week coming into showtime. It's actually ticked up a little bit now, a little bit north of that 30-cent level. So a little bit higher than where it was last week, but not a ton. Had a little bit of a range this week, down to about 28.75 cents and a high of pretty close to where it is right now, a high of about 30.5 on about the 29th. If you've been following the saga that is Ripple, you know they have a big lawsuit going on against them. Some folks claiming that the Ripple, when they issued XRP, they should have been treated as a security, and they didn't. And so there's a lot of back and forth on that, and that people are really watching that for kind of the future of Ripple. If it's a security, that's going to cause all sorts of other issues for them. If it's termed to be not, then perhaps that could pave the way for more upside. So that seems to be why Ripple is kind of stuck in this kind of holding pattern here. And we saw another motion going on in that lawsuit here on Monday. So the endless legal saga that is Ripple continues here. Litecoin also up a little bit this week, up about approximately $5 from where it was last show. The high was, let's see, right now it's about 63.75. So it's pretty much at the high right now. And then the low was kind of the interesting one, kind of a tight range. It was 57.30. They put here 67.30, which is obviously not right. 57.30 on the downside, which another one, it kind of bounced off that same level multiple times over the course of the week. So some supports seeming to hold up here in crypto land this week. And last but not least, let's go out to Bitcoin Cash before we get to some of your questions. Bitcoin Cash down a wee bit this week, down about 25 handles. It hit a high of looks like about 302 on the 29th and down to the low of about a little bit shy of 272 on the 1st. Right now it's at about 294 or so out there. But you guys, I know, have some questions, so let's keep on rolling right on into your crypto question segment.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, welcome to the crypto questions segment. And Emmanuel, I was kind of only partly joking at the top of the show when I said that it seems like we have become kind of the default outlet to discuss and answer questions about your platform, because we get a ton of them. And so I thought we saved a few because we knew you were coming on this week to allow you to address yourself. Some of them we kind of touched on, others we haven't. Let's just go in order here, see how many we can get done here. Let's start with Elliot. Elliot wants to know, does Skew offer metrics from BitMEX options or only Deribit? We touched on this before. You guys mostly offer Deribit and LedgerX. Any plans to hook into BitMEX in the near future there, Emmanuel?
Yeah, that's a good question. We know that they have some what they call up and down contracts. We are not tracking the skew of those particular contracts, but we might look into it in the future. Like where we are kind of focused on the option side is really being able to onboard what's coming over at ICE and the CME.
Well, that gets into our next question, actually, which is from BGTFG. That's a mouthful of a handle. They want to know, does Skew have backed data? Obviously, backed has been a contentious addition, shall we say, to the crypto space, Emmanuel. People were really watching them with intense interest. A lot of people seem like, maybe not a lot, but a definite loud subsection of the crypto community were looking at backed as maybe being that inflection point to turn Bitcoin back up to the north there. They thought that was going to bring in this wave of new institutional players with this physically settled contract. So far, it seems like that hasn't been the case, but again, it is early days there. So yeah, this listener and a lot of others want to know, what do you guys offer, or maybe what are you planning to offer there on the back side in the near future, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I mean, the backed, for me, it's something where I spend a lot of time thinking about, and definitely one of the most interesting developments. I would really say, there are kind of fundamental difference between the backed contract and the CME contract. So the CME contracts are financials futures, they are cash settled using an underlying index. The backed product, they have introduced this concept of warehouse, and they take the custody of the physical bitcoins, and so the contracts can be physically settled. So, I'm particularly interested to see if this kind of products can trigger I would say, more usage of the contracts as hedging. So, can we see more corporate people, like the miners, for instance, start hedging and risk managing a bit more, like their Bitcoin position. So that's going to be something that's, going to be very interesting as we enter next year. In terms of the data that we have, we at the moment have end of day data in our Bitcoin futures dashboard. And so we kind of update that once a day, and that gives you the numbers for the total volumes and total open interest. And then we'll be working with them to see what we could do on the real-time data side of things.
Well, we're all looking forward to that. Hope here that all these products catch a bid from a volume perspective, because at the end of the day, more products for people to trade and arb amongst themselves is good for everyone out there. Let's look at, we got time for a couple more. Let's do a couple really quickly. Talso wants to know, what is the best place for altcoin stats and analytics? Well, I guess it's depends what you're looking for here, Talso. If you're looking for the underlying, then there are a lot of different venues. I think it's kind of fragmented based on the altcoin that you're looking for. If you're looking for the derivative side, again, not just because he's on here, I do like what the Skew folks have to offer. I mean, and ETH is kind of really still the only game in town out there from a altcoin derivatives market that is really viable enough, and we kind of just talked about it, is that viable enough to really build an ecosystem of analytics around. So I like to use, and I'm going to be using a lot more, I think, now that they're readily available here, the ETH metrics that they have here. I'm curious for you, Emmanuel. Obviously, you like your platform. You're a big fan. And any other places you think are good to go for decent analytics or just stats and metrics from the altcoin world?
Yeah, I mean, like what we do is I would say is quite complementary to the offering that you would find on a platform like Messari, for instance, where you get a lot of high quality data across, what's occurring in the spot market across a number of, or even kind of all the altcoins. So, that's a platform that we like here. When it comes to what we do in particular, as you mentioned, we need to see a strong enough base for us to do the work and kind of have confidence that there will be like a healthy derivatives market that will build upon it. And for now, we've identified Bitcoin and Ether.
Kind of hard to fault you on that front. Yeah, I think we're all hoping that all these products and all these derivatives take off. So we have a lot of fun things to sink our teeth into here. Let's leave it on a speculative fun question here, Emmanuel. This comes from 560L. He's asking about Skew, which is in your name after all. So let's go here. If Bitcoin eventually becomes the alternate currency that everyone hopes, do you think the Skew will line up like the S&P 500 Skew? He says, will funds sell calls and buy puts in large numbers? Thank you for this fine program. We need more content on the crypto derivatives out there. Well, thank you for that, Mr. or Mrs. 560L. We agree with you. That's why we do this show. It's kind of the only game in town when it comes to talking about crypto derivatives and the analytics, and certainly on the option side, there's really not a lot out there talking about it. So that's why we decided to create this show at the beginning of the year. We're glad you and a lot of others out there are enjoying it. And, Emmanuel, I'd say questions about the nature of Bitcoin Skew have been one of the more popular that we've received. This one's a little bit more theoretical. He's kind of positing this someday in the maybe distant or maybe not so distant future where Bitcoin does become this kind of de facto alternative to the dollar out there, I suppose. What do you think that will do to the Skew, or do you think maybe it'll shape up kind of like what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the flow, the first natural flow that you will see at scale for Bitcoin options will be call overwriting. Like that's what we've been seeing in equities, and that's what usually driving the Skew to be so steep, and also that's kind of what's driving the term structure to be steep and the kind of front months vol to be kind of relatively suppressed, I would say. So I wouldn't be surprised that we see a scenario where you have all the kind of hodlers, and that would be all these kind of passive kind of holding that would be potentially interested to generate some extra income and extra yield. And so you would see all those kind of income funds emerging. I think that wouldn't be too surprising. Also, I guess, anything on the production side would be really interested to look at, overlays like risk reversals where you can sell a number of calls to fund some insurance buying, just essentially buying puts, and that will also kind of, make the skew steeper. So, I can definitely see a curve for Bitcoin that would look, that would be quite different to what it is today, which is essentially negative skew and high vol. I think, in a number of years we could see low vol and steep skew, but we'll see.
Yeah, that certainly is a way off, and you're right. I could certainly envision a universe like that where Bitcoin becomes far more prevalent, and as a result, it starts lining up. I think the way you outlined it, seeing funds coming in, doing their overlays, and the traditional type of trading activity that we see in the broad indices. So it doesn't sound too outlandish, 560. We're not quite there yet, but maybe sometime in the near future. Unfortunately, that music means we have come to the end of this epic sojourn through the world of all things crypto. I want to thank our guest here, Emmanuel, for joining us today, for sticking with us throughout the entirety of the program, allowing us to pick his brain on all these various metrics and analytics they have going on over there. And Emmanuel, like we said, you guys have the new URL. That's awesome. Skew.com. It's easy to find, listeners. SKEW.com. Let's leave them with a little bit of a tease of what you have in the pipes. And maybe any new features, any new functionality, maybe something cool you have as a bell or whistle you have up your sleeve, Emmanuel. Now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Look, we are really excited to start onboarding our users with the new account framework, and we're really keen to get all the feedbacks from what you guys have to say.
There you go. Check it out for yourself at Skew.com. I'm so used to saying SK3W. No, Skew. SKEW.com is the place to go. And I want to thank our guest, Emmanuel. And I also want to thank all of you guys out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for listening live, for sending in so many great questions. Keep those coming. We love to hear from you guys. And we'll see you back here next week for more of the Crypto Rundown.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.